I'm Marty Owings. Tonight we're going to talk to 8-term Representative Jim Abeler. He's a Republican representing Anoka and surroundings, and also sort of a health and human services expert. Not even sort of. He is a health and human services expert. I think you chaired the committee for a while
how about
during the
that?
Republican-dominated legislature, and then you also have always been on the committee, I think, for a long time.
Yeah, all 16 years.
All right. Well, welcome to the program.
Hey, it's good to be back again.
Good to have you.
Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about this. The vulnerable adults advocates were up here.
Were they?
Yeah, they were talking about they need a 5% increase, or there's a 5% increase. You know about this, and then so.
Well, I've given 3 speeches in 2 days in the Ways and Means Committee, and on the floor yesterday, and in the committee today.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about your position first of all, where you're at on this. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's something we should do. If I were the chair, we would try to find the money anyway. There's you have to prioritize what you're going to do. This area could consume any amount of money, and if you're careful, you can get a lot of value for it, or you can not get much value at all. But in the way I categorize services and the work we do, essential, important, and nice. And if there's anything that's important and even essential, well, it's essential on that list, is that caring for the people that are the most vulnerable, the developmentally disabled, brain injury, people with mental illness, that are in these homes and needing the services, they need consistency in their care. And they need the staff to kind of know them and be around. And the way it works out, these staff groups become like families, and they care for Tom or Bill or Mary, and they just become connected into their lives. And so they want to do this, and so they get about $10, $11 an hour, and it hasn't gone up in a long time, and you can't really live on that, but they're so passionate to care for their client. It becomes like their family. Right. And then after a while, they just cannot afford to stay, and with angst, they have to leave and go get a job at Kmart or at a local factory or something, and it's just challenging. We have to find a way to keep those individuals in the industry, serving the person they love so much, and that way they're cared for so well, the individuals are, and it's awesome. And that's why it's so important.
Yeah, I don't think that you're going to get much disagreement on that from me, but we're talking about a shortfall of about $83 million, is what they're talking about. So
that's what it takes, yeah.
About $83 million to get there. So apart from wages for the sort of caretaker, home health care people or the health folks, what's the rest of the money going to?
Well, the 83 million all goes to a 5% raise, and then some of that would go to helping the administrative work within the organization, but it's meant to be encumbered 75% to wages. So it'll mostly all go to the workers.
Okay.
And there's overhead. They have to pay heat and lights and pay the administrator and so on. But so it's a good proposal. Ironically, the governor agreed to have only 4%, and the House came out with a target $7 million below that, which will be hard to even hit that.
Right.
And we argue about how much money you should raise and was there too much taxes, but they left in the bottom line $194 million.
Yeah.
And so the House, I thought, had just failed in their effort even to make a demonstration that they support this.
Yeah.
And that was my objection the last 2 days.
So you're kind of turning the paradigm on its head here, because normally, the media and your colleagues sometimes portray the Republicans as the people who aren't that concerned with these issues, and they're the guardians of corporations and stuff. But tell me, I'm going to quote you here. You said, "I tell you, if we don't look after these individuals who are serving in these direct service positions, we're going to have a system that will collapse on us," Abeler said. Yeah, that's you.
It's correct, and if you can't keep these individuals in their jobs, you'll get a churn through there. You'll have people that will take this just as a job, and they won't have the passion. And the services will be
Representative, aren't
mediocre.
these arguments that you heard from your DFL colleagues not that many years ago when you guys were on the majority in the committees and stuff? They were asking you to address these issues. Why won't they get behind it now?
I don't know. When I was the chair, the governor came out with a big tax increase, if you remember, several $billion, but he reduced spending in this area by 4%, cut them by 4%. And I objected to that. The House bill, where I even had deeper cuts than he had, didn't have any reductions at all. And at the end, we had to settle for some. And I don't want to spend any time criticizing somebody. I just want to accomplish something.
Right.
You know, a lot of things get accomplished in this world of ours. I had the privilege to go over to Germany, and there was once
Here we go.
there was once a wall that divided East and West Germany, and Ronald Reagan,
You going to
who was
spring this
able-
on me?
Ronald Reagan, who was able to
Fair
work
enough.
with Tip O'Neill, but stare down Mr. Gorbachev and say, "Tear down that wall."
Yes, he did.
Tore down the wall, and
Thank you,
there's a
Jim.
piece of history for you.
I
Those are
really
not available in
appreciate that.
stores.
They are not available.
They are available in rubble-strewn parks in Berlin.
This will go in a great place of honor for me. But personally, you know, I have a connection to this place and this time, so I really appreciate you doing that for me, Representative Abeler. That's a very kind gesture.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm still
Well,
going to have to ask you tough questions, but
Oh, what? But so the thing is that some things seem impossible, and
Yes.
for decades that wall stood
yeah,
as a testament to man's inhumanity to man
yes.
and totalitarian bad things. But enough time and enough people agreeing between President Kennedy and Ronald Reagan at ends of the spectrum, or maybe they're both in the middle, but
Yeah, now
but-
they'd be seen as moderates.
yeah,
on
yeah.
both ends.
Neither could get endorsed in their own party,
That's
probably.
right, probably not. So,
Yeah.
well, good. Let's talk a little bit about Erin Murphy, the House Minority Leader, responded on this issue and said,
Oh, she did.
an addition of 4% on top of the 1% that was in the budget last time gets us to this goal. At least from the conversations that I had, Erin Murphy, over the summer and fall, that was an important goal. I think we're meeting it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I like Erin a lot. We get along really well, but 4% is not 5%. And the 5, it should be 10. These individuals make $10 an hour, so 5% is 50 cents. And they did get a 1% raise coming up this April. However, they've been cut in the past, and they compared to nursing homes that have the 5%. And actually, just in the last cycle, nursing homes weren't cut at all, but these people were cut 1.5 points.
I see.
And so if you take the 1.5 off the 5, they're still short a point.
What are your Republicans colleagues saying about this in particular, this particular issue, Jim?
We see it as a high value.
Okay.
And, it's not bad to spend money. It's not good to spend money in bad ways. And so, my view, even the service niche is a very expensive area. It spends billions and billions, 26 billion or something is our budget from all funds in the biennium, and that's a lot.
Yeah.
And if you spend it well, you can get a lot to show for it. A lot of my work when I was a chairman, as we had reduced spending, was to improve outcomes.
Yes.
And sometimes spend a bit less and get a better product. The same as if you clean out your fridge, you actually can find what's good in there, and some things,
Yeah.
now you have more room for storage, and you can, that's what we should do once in a while.
So if that's the case and it makes sense to do this, then there's a $1.2 billion surplus, and we're looking for ways to, apparently they're looking for ways to find out what to do about that money.
Yeah.
Has anybody brought that up on the issue, or apart from
Well,
yourself?
they left money on the bottom line, which is ironic. And
Yeah.
a lot of our people want to give the money back, and I think we should undo some of those business-to-business taxes. The
Right.
farmers are in today, they're getting pounded by a sales tax that makes no sense.
It
And
sounds
so-
like some of that's on its way, according to the DFL.
If the
My
Senate
sources
ever-
tell me. Yeah.
When the Senate gets around to it.
Right,
and,
yeah.
And so that's good to deal with some of that. But I think in a bipartisan way, 84 people have signed on to this bill. That's the most I think they've had in a long time.
Yeah.
And a lot of Republicans, probably most of Democrats, a lot of Democrats. I don't know what the breakdown is. So hopefully it'll get done, and hopefully that people will keep the promises
Yeah.
they made. And so my little joke slogan is 4% is not the same as 5.
It seems to make sense, right? So, yeah, well, you had advocates up here apparently today,
Yeah.
my sources tell me they were pretty adamant about
Well, then we go talk to the governor.
Yeah, that's
That
right,
worked
yeah.
on the marijuana thing, and he understood people's plight. And the governor's a good man. He's got a good heart. And I think when he brought out his 4%, he didn't really understand what it meant to the individuals and these people who are served. And it's
Have you had a
It's
chance to
remarkable.
talk to him, Representative?
not lately, no, I should call
Okay.
him.
All right, yeah.
He usually takes my calls. I call him at his house sometimes. And, we've become friends through this time.
Okay.
And all the political stuff aside, it's just nice when you can, we don't agree on everything, of course, but he's got a heart just like yours. He's got a good heart. He wants to do well. And you can work with that.
Sure.
You know, we don't agree on everything, but we agree on so many things that are important about the humanity of man and the need for quality infrastructure and
Yeah.
a state that we're proud of that moves people along.
Well, thanks to Tim Pugmire for reporting on this issue
Oh, yeah,
for
did he?
NPR News. He had something to say about it. Let's
Can I
talk
show you a
about
picture of
you.
my family? Here's my
Yeah.
family.
Let's see. You'll have to zoom in.
Oh
on
yeah,
that.
you want to hold
Yeah.
that? You're the specialist.
Yeah, we'll bring that in a little
Yeah.
bit. There's Jim Abeler, Representative Abeler is also running for U.S. Senate, and I thought we'd spend just a few minutes talking about your campaign at all.
Sure.
As well. And you've got a nice long bullet list of issues that you're concerned with, and that you've been given some accolades for. I
Yeah.
remember the time we pulled out your awards list, and I
Yeah.
think you were a bit embarrassed by it, but frankly, I mean, you
it's
stay up here for 18 years,
16, yeah.
16.
Yeah, and
it's a long
You
time.
can keep
Let's
that
talk
as a
about it.
souvenir. Put me on your fridge so you can remember me every day and say a prayer for us.
I just can't put it on my lawn. I'm sorry, Jim.
That's okay. Well, it's
Not
too
allowed
small.
to
We have a
endorse
bigger one for your
Political
lawn.
candidates.
But you can put me on your fridge. I'll have
Well,
just a fridge
appreciate that.
memorial.
Yeah, well, my
You know,
kids
I
will
watch
love
what's
it.
going on out in Washington and I grieve.
Yeah.
That they don't know how to get along with each other. They seem to not even like each other.
Yeah.
And all this push me, pull you, just squabbling, and it moves me, and I grieve. I literally grieve, and I have watched my work here. It's like I've made a difference in some parts. And what if they actually hired a guy for quality and who actually knew something, who could go out there and solve some of these issues about the disability services on a grander scale and health issues on a grander scale, to export Minnesota's awesome talent and our abilities into the federal system so that people in Arkansas and Mississippi can benefit by what we've discovered about how to serve our disabled and how to serve our seniors and how to serve the people with a brain injury. Wouldn't that be something?
You'd take that advocacy to Washington with you? Do you think that would, what would be your cornerstone issue if you were elected to the U.S. Senate?
Well, get value for the money we're spending. The feds, when I was doing my reductions in 2011, the stuff I wanted to cut the most was a federal grant. They had some of the most silly federal grants that you would never, ever think made any sense. And so we had to cut stuff that we really liked and had to keep some of these other grants in place. And so if we could help them, essential, important, and nice, and then give Minnesota flexibility to do some things that we could even have better quality services for our disabled and seniors. We're hamstrung by federal regulations and by some bureaucrat who says, oh no, you have to get our approval to change. So that's what I want to do. I want to go make a difference and I'd like to change the tone in my area. I can't change Washington, but I can change healthcare and human services in the parts I can touch, which could be significant.
Have your opponents agreed to dialogue, debate,
Yeah.
discuss?
Well, one of the guys has a hard time getting to much. He's busy, you know.
Are you talking about
Yeah. Mr.
former comedian?
Oh, no.
Oh,
No, actually, Franken's not going to pay attention to us
Yeah,
until
he's not
until
gonna-
August. He's going
right,
to just
right.
disappear. But you know, they're all nice people. I'm not
Sure.
going to spend much time bad mouthing anybody. I'm not good at it. I'm not good at bad mouthing folks. I want to tell people what I want to do,
All right.
and I want to go out there and get the budget under control with humanity, and I want to find a way to get this healthcare thing made better because it's just a mess. And the feds need to
Even
quit.
Democrats are admitting it's
Yeah.
kind of a mess, right?
And the Fed's got to quit overreaching in all these places. And the president has to quit suspending laws he just doesn't like.
Yeah.
We're a nation of laws, and if you pass a law, you're stuck with it. So change the law, you know.
Yeah.
And so,
You got to go through a process, or you should, right?
yeah, that's, and so I think people agree on that. And
Doesn't
so,
that transcend political ideology?
yeah.
Okay.
And so I think I want to represent every man, you know, go out there. And what's happened is, if you draw a line of 100 lines, and the top line's the 1%,
Yeah.
and the 1% run stuff, except they keep within the 40-yard lines. And so that little bit of America that has that status
Yes.
runs the rest, and you and I pay for it all.
Yeah.
And they tell us what to do, and it's like, I thought America was for Americans.
Right.
And that we can, and you don't have to be a corporate giant or a wealthy Democrat or a wealthy Republican or a movie star or some corporate star on the other side. It should be people who live in the world around here, like
Like
all
a
the
plumber, a trucker, a school teacher.
like the Minnesota House, a bunch
Yeah.
of regular people from all walks of life,
Yeah.
figuring it out and making it work, and that's my dream.
Well, let's switch gears and talk about a little
Yeah.
bit more local
Sure.
for a second. the party that you belong to still has a litmus test. That much is clear. Representative Fitzsimmons, Representative Loon, both failed to receive their party's endorsement due primarily to their vote in support of same-sex marriage last year.
Right.
It's political calculus to do that, apparently, in your party. What do you think about that?
Well, there's certain votes you take, that something will happen. I overrode the governor. It comes up from time to time on the gas tax. I believe that was the right vote.
Talking about overriding former Governor Tim Pawlenty, who's also a Republican, and you're talking about the transportation bill.
And a person takes a controversial vote. They shouldn't be naive to think that nothing is going to come of it.
You knew you were risking your political career at that time,
Absolutely.
Representative Abeler?
And I'm not aspirational. I just want to do good. And so even the Senate thing is not because I'm so proud of myself. I just want to go help. But on the override, I knew that there would be trouble. And I think Mr. Fitzsimmons knew by his actions that something would come of it. And the challenge for him is he had kind of run just opposite of that. He apparently changed his position. And that's not as good as if you always ran as a person who would have voted for gay marriage. Representative Loon, I don't know if she had stated her position or not. I know I sit right by her. She anguished over this vote for days. She was torn this way, that way. What shall I do? My district, what I believe, what I think is right. And so I don't always agree with everybody how they vote, but I think on some of these things you have to vote your conscience, and you try to vote your district, and there are consequences to that. And we represent our own selves and the people that are behind us, and sometimes that puts you in an awkward position. And I think some people on the other side of the vote voted against it, and they thought that was the vote they should take on behalf of their district.
That's right.
So a couple Democrats, and then they have to deal with that. And so it's a good day when you can vote what you believe, and it's good politics. It's a more difficult day when you vote what you believe, and it's bad politics. It's the worst day when you vote what you don't believe, and it's bad politics.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Well, so what do you think your realistic chances are for U.S. Senate?
Well,
if you were
actually,
to,
I got a
pretty
shot.
good?
It's possible.
Okay.
Nothing's ever for sure. There's a primary coming up, or there's endorsing, and we're working toward that. Actually, a lot of people like me.
Yeah.
A lot of people find me refreshing, and that's good. And a lot of the party establishment, like, oh, Abeler, well, never mind him.
Sure.
But a lot of people underestimate me, and that's good. But I know what I believe, and I know that I feel compelled to do this, and
A lot of people have made the mistake of underestimating you, Representative Abeler.
And so the question really is there a place for a person in Washington who actually is there for the right reasons and wants to help their state and their country? That's my question, and I hope there is.
Yeah.
And maybe I want to try to prove that point.
Well, I think we'll wrap up finally by asking you a couple of questions about that. I think when I first met you several years ago now, I don't want to say when because I'm getting old too, but we talked about the moderate being missing in today's political environment. You're you're sort of like a man out of time here in some ways. Your district seems to support you because I think you're largely, and I have relatives who live in your district.
Yeah.
I won't say where their political leanings are, but
Yeah.
they like you. Regardless of your political affiliation, people seem to like you, as you said. You pointed that out. Is there a place for a moderate in today's political environment? Can you be that political moderate?
On some things I'm left, on some things I'm right. I like the environment. I believe in not wasting money. I'm not even sure what I am
anymore. That might be a moderate in your party.
But I consider all my entire 40,000 people. I consider that they're all important. I don't agree with all their views. I do my best to be the composite representative of that. And I'm temperate in my views. I try not to make enemies. Some people might be an enemy. They might think they're my enemy, but however I can say that, but they're not an enemy to me. Okay. And if I agree with you on 20%, I can work with you. And that's been successful to me, and that's what I want to take. And labels get confusing, and then, but I just want it to work. Government is us, and it's only bad if us doesn't show up and do our best.
Yeah.
When the people engage, when we engage properly, it's the most beautiful system in the world. On a bad day, it's as bad as the worst tyranny. And so on behalf of my granddaughter, who's on the picture, by the way, these are available. You can send for these. Go to jimabeler.com, and you can find a picture of my granddaughter. But on a good day, we can secure the world for my granddaughter and her generation, and that drives me to do all this. I hope to make a difference.
I was thinking about this a little while ago when you were talking about it, but you know, when you started here 16 years ago, it was a different place.
It was a different place.
It was a different place. And I think there were more people who tended to think like you.
Yeah.
They could cross political boundaries.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I used to sit down there in the alcove during late night sessions, I'd watch you and you'd walk back and forth.
Yeah.
Republican, Democrat, Democrat, Republican,
Yeah.
Republican. You and Mr. Rukavina seem to beat a path.
Well, and Harry Mayers and
Harry Mayers, yeah.
some of those old timers. And
Not a history lesson, but and it's easy to become nostalgic about that. But
yeah.
I mean, it seemed like there was more significant joint work getting done.
I tried to model that. I learned that from some of my mentors. And you can disagree vigorously and vehemently with some people on topics, but at the end you have to work on something else. And the joy I have, having been a chair 2 years, is I got to model that in my committee. And every member of my committee sat in my chair for almost an entire session, running the topic that was important to them. And I tried to select the topics that they'd find interesting.
Sure.
And I walked away and let them run the committee. And that really felt good. And I tried to model that, and maybe it's made a difference. Hopefully people remember that as an example. And maybe someday I'll be their mentor. They'll look back. That'd be a very good thing.
That would be a good thing. Let me ask you, wrapping up here then, if you become a U.S. Senator representing the state of Minnesota, what are the first couple things you think you'd do in the U.S. Senate? And then after that, let's talk about what if you stay here?
Yeah. Well, I would, about November 10th or 12th, I'd wander out to Washington and get a card table, and I'd summon Secretary Sebelius and say, we've got some work to do on disability services in Minnesota. And we'd have a little discussion, and they'd send some middle-level guy, and I'd say, well, where's the real person? And they would then realize who I was and what my goal was to actually
poor middle guy.
expedite.
He's not a real person.
I'd be nice to him. Well, I need somebody with authority.
Right.
And so, so we'd intend to start streamlining the healthcare system and the disability services system, because we're borrowing money, close to $1 trillion a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money, and it's not a grant program. And little Raina, my granddaughter, and your granddaughters, and everybody's granddaughters out and watching this show, are all going to pay this stuff. You know, and after a while, the borrowed money comes home to roost. And so that's what I want to do. Start there. Start with lots of things will come up.
Sure.
And so I want to have my same thoughtful, tempered approach and bring people together. It won't always work. But I want to find some Democrat out there who's new. I'll meet him in freshman orientation, Doug perhaps, or Mary, and they'll be interested in health care, and I'll say, let's work on some stuff. And so we'll put together some modules that'll be sensible ones. And when they need $10 billion, we say, oh, we got a $10 billion module here for you. And they'll stick it in the bill, and there'll be no argument because Doug and I agree. And it'll be non-political, and we'll solve the problem. And that's what I want to do, is to make a difference in that bit of it anyway. I can't change Ms. Pelosi and Mr. Reid and Mr. Boehner and Mr. McConnell. I can't change how they are going to deport themselves. But I can change how I act, or I can be how I am and make a difference, and I would like to see that happen.
Seems sensible.
Yeah.
Finally, what are you going to do if you stay here? What's your plan?
Oh, my best, like always.
Good answer.
Majority, minority. You know, people count on us to do our best.
Yeah.
They want us to get along. 292 places I've been, or 293 I guess now, since August. And the story is, could you get along and solve a problem? That's what people want.
That's what people want to know.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
Could you solve something?
They're fed up with the bickering and whatnot.
Yeah, they can't handle it. We're still the greatest country in the world, and Minnesota is one of the cleanest states in the greatest country, which inspires me.
Politically clean, is
Yeah.
that what you're saying? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we have scrubbers for smokestacks.
Well, there it is. Other than that, how are you keeping yourself busy? Besides this job and the other two jobs you
And
have,
my
running for
practice,
U.S. Senate?
And my practice and repairing my buildings. I try to go for a walk. I went for a walk on Sunday. It was nice. Took the dogs.
I should mention that Representative Abeler is also a chiropractor in practice. So.
Well, you're awesome. You've
Hey,
always been so
thank you.
generous with your time
Oh, I
and
appreciate
thoughtful.
Yeah,
You know,
thanks.
so if you people want to write me, jimabeler.com, Abeler, jimabeler.com, and check out the picture of my granddaughter, and send us a picture of your granddaughter, and I'll put that on the website too.
All right, well, thank you very much for being our guest tonight, Jim
Oh,
Abeler.
pleasure.
Always good to see you and good to talk.
So hang on to that piece of the rock.
I will, that's never going anywhere. I'm keeping that, yeah, thank you very much for that. That's it for tonight. We'll see you again next Tuesday night live here from the Capitol. For the Capitol Conversations crew and for my guest, Jim Abeler, I'm Marty Owings. Good night, everybody.